adverse drug reactions, looking at the genes that are enriched in the local population or a global population that contribute to allergic reactions, including life-threatening, fatal reactions.
So you touched on a really interesting point here, and we talked before about you have the clinician side of it, and then you start to have this personal ownership side. So as people can start to, whether they've got wearables and they're starting to look at their own information, they're starting to take action on that. And maybe something, I think, that was talked about in the breast cancer field. What are the sorts of things that people could be looking at, maybe not today, but in the near future, where they can start to understand more about them, they can start to take more of these preventative measures to look more from a wellness standpoint than from a treatment standpoint? What do you see changing there?
How did you phrase it? There's an ownership. There's a personal responsibility to maintain your health. I like to think about health as something that we always have, but we don't always measure. And wearable data, laboratory testing, genomics, I don't think about these as tests. I think about, frankly, I get excited at every single presentation today. I tweeted earlier the Facebook post about the increased targeting and accuracy for the way you looked at the data, who's going to be the market, the way the marketeer looks at it. And I did the same in my Kopi chat with SAS yesterday. And if we were half as good as you guys are at sub-segmenting populations, and you're happy 70% accuracy and this is the right person, that's what we need to be doing, using lifestyle data, genomics, proteomics, all of these different data silos that come in to making us a unique biological entity. The challenge that I see coming is that we're going to redefine evidence-based medicine not as a standard distribution curve, but along the lines of a long tail. And so that's, when you get that, that's when you take ownership. When it's not a test, when genetics isn't a test, it's a resource that you do it once. This is your book. Think of your genome as your favorite book when you're growing up. But if you read it again 5 years later, the words didn't change, but your interpretation of the words do. And I think that's where our academic expertise comes in, because we're just learning this language. We can translate it, but we don't always know what it means.
And maybe Matthew, I can come around. Sorry, can we maybe get the fan off? I'm sort of a bit echoey here. So the interesting part about the ownership is, we talk a lot about the ownership from the healthcare provider, ownership of the data that comes out of the sequencing, but you're really in a unique space of, we're starting to let people instrument themselves, right? And we're starting to collect some very interesting data. Right now, some of it may be a little bit basic, but things like footfalls, or maybe looking at heartbeat, or there's a number of different, maybe weight. What do you see as, from that ownership standpoint, how will that balance shift over to the consumer side? When we say it isn't the healthcare provider's responsibility, it becomes our ownership, our responsibility. How do you see that changing?
Well, I think what Stephen said, can everyone hear me okay? What Stephen said is exactly right. And what we're particularly excited about at Misfit is helping people to take that ownership of their well-being. You could ask whether we really have a healthcare system now, or we really have an illness care system. And I think that there's a tremendous potential, and within Smart Nation concept, or any society, about shifting the focus to wellness. If you would ask, what have been some of the major changes in the healthcare space that have changed the way that patients and their caretakers, their clinicians interact, and the way that patients view their illness, I think it's something that actually was not specifically at all for healthcare. It was really the fact that people can look on the web, that can Google their medical conditions and learn about what's going on with them, has shifted the perspective from a patient coming to their doctor and looking to be the recipient of information to I think what we're moving towards is patients coming to their doctor and having a real dialogue. Patients being able to provide information, patients feeling a responsibility. They know that all the other days of the year that they're not seeing their doctor, those are the days that matter. Those are the days that are going to make a difference. And what can patients do? And how can they take a little bit of their health monitoring and their awareness with them all the time?
Thanks for that. I'd like to pull that back a little bit, and I think that's a really interesting trend, especially when you're looking at people bringing data to the healthcare provider, right? That looks really different than what we had. From a data ownership standpoint, right, we get into some pretty interesting points where if we've been collecting data from the provider side before, it was pretty clear that that information was owned by the provider, and it was owned for some of the greater good. But as we start to bring in our own data, who keeps ownership of this? And I'd like to actually put this out to anybody in the panel who wants to raise their hand on this. But as we start to measure ourselves and as we start to have that, is that the general population sort of data set, or is this really still about the personal side of it?
Just to quickly share my perspective, I think it's really important that it's clear from the beginning that each person owns their data and owns the rights to that data. It gets more complicated from a technological standpoint when you share your data with your provider, they share it within a network, within a research environment, and if at some point you decide that you don't want to share your data anymore, making sure that you can track down that trail. For us, it's simpler, I think, for the gentleman dealing with genomic data, which even